So how does the Content Aware Move tool work? Let's go ahead and click and hold, bringing on our patch tool, bringing up our next tool, Content Aware Move tool. Now you'll see immediately that it has the same structure and color tools that our patch tool has. But we have the ability to sample all layers at all times. And we have a couple of modes, I'll talk about those. And we have something called Transform on Drop. Let me demonstrate what all those do. First off, since we can sample all layers, let's go ahead and follow along with that. And I will just make a new layer. And I will take the Content Aware Move tool and just draw, again, a little selection. Once I have that, I will remember to turn on Sample All Layers instead of just saying I will. So you'd be having a dickens of a time doing that. There we go. Now when I drop this in, it tries to blend out the previous area and drop this one in. And now I can do on-fly adjustments again, and I can see the previews, supposedly. And I've noticed that this tends to depend on, oh, there we go. It tends to depend on how many times you've done it, how big the move is, and the version of Photoshop that you're using. So I'm thinking no color blending would probably be most appropriate, and sure enough, that's healed up this location. Structure, again, doesn't go to 10, but it does go up to 7. Now I'm going to Control H to hide the selection. You can see with these settings, we've got this weird cloud effect, but if I punch down the structure, I lose that strange effect around the cloud. Essentially, it doesn't try to keep the structure of what's closest to it. So I have moved the tree. Now that's in move mode, but there's another mode. If we go to extend, this is fun. Let me zoom out, Z on the keyboard, Alt click, and let's go ahead and grab. Let's say that we have actually removed a couple of trees. And the way I'm going to do that is just steal the work we did earlier, grab the Content Aware with Move, boop, and drop it down. Now, what did it mean by Transform on Drop before I get back to the different modes? Well, essentially this. Let's say that I have selected another chunk of cloud, and I drop it down. Notice that I immediately get a transformation, so I can do things like adjust the rotation and the size and really get it down to where I need and what I need it on. So I'm just going to fiddle with it a little bit. When I tell it OK or press Enter on the keyboard, it'll move it over. Now it did some damage, which is to be expected because the patch tool is actually what I'd want to use in that case. There we go. So now I've got some cleared out area. Now let's go ahead and do the extend. I'm going to go in, grab a couple of trees here. Let's just do 2 to start with. Holding down the Alt key allows me to subtract from the selection, just as with all the other tools. Switch it over to extend, and I'll drop them down. And I still have the transform on, so I can rescale these a little bit if I want. Tell it OK. And voila, what this did was leave our previous trees alone while attempting to put in new trees here. Now you can see that it missed a spot, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off Transform on Drop. Just move a little piece, and oops, I did get too much. It's on me. Oops. Just move that over. There we go. So that's the Content Aware Move. So you can see that's pretty powerful. I was pretty slapdash about it. But again, before, after, I simply removed those trees and moved those over. So not a really big change on that case. But what if we were to revisit our Bumblebee and have a Content Aware Move, but I'm just going to select a marquee tool. It doesn't matter which one. And after I've selected around the bee, I'm going to move around to a different location. Make a new layer. I'm going to go back now to our Content Aware Move, and we'll have to fiddle with the controls, but I'll sample all layers. And this time I'll cover the bee. This did not a great job, but a much better job than the last few tools. And if we start playing with the structure, we'd see we do want a loose structure, maybe a little higher, a little lower, and then we would want to adjust the color again so that it will fill in. So that did a pretty solid start. I'm going to deselect real quick. It's a pretty solid start. We can see some damage around the edges, but you know what's great for that? Time to bring in the healing brush tool. And I've missed. Let's do the spot healing brush. I really need to sample right where I'm clicking. And I want a smaller one. And just a few clicks will try to patch it up. And you can see that it is, in fact, transforming it. And with enough work, I would eventually get the honeycomb structure back in. Another thing I could do instead is stick with the content-aware move tool, set it to extend mode, and then just grab individual combs. Whoops. And if I have a problem, I can, selecting them, I can just get a different tool like the lasso tool, the polygon lasso tool. And I can grab a teeny weeny individual comb. Now, with the move content-aware move tool, I can just boop, start covering stuff up. And if I need to resample an area, just switch to marquee tool, M on the keyboard, slide down, then switch back with J. Oops, J. And you can see that I can start patching it up that way. Now that was with extend. Another thing you can do if you just want to move the bee, and let me select it this time, I will use, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. I will use our favored quick selection tool. I'm going to fill the layer real quick so that nothing's selected. That's just Control Delete. Grab a brush, and I'm going to use a nice big soft brush. Flip the color around to to white. Grab the bee. Hello, little bee. Switch out. And now I'm going to go ahead and use the content-aware move tool. And now I can actually use sample all layers, which is great. Set it to move. We'll leave the color high and the structure low. We're probably going to need to crank up the structure. We can add more bees. Now we definitely need a higher structure. Sorry, we can move the bee around. But with the structure as low as it is, it destroyed our bee almost immediately. So we do want a higher structure to preserve it as best we can. And then we'd want to come in and touch it up around and about. Now, that said, it might be good to undamage this one area, and this is certainly a case for the spot healing brush tool. Sorry, the spot healing brush tool. Gaboop, gaboop, gaboop. It starts to patch it up. Gaboop, gaboop, boop, boop, and still a little wobbly. So I'd want to work on that just a little bit more to really get it back to where it needs to be. And if there's any corner that's kind of messed up, I can spot healing brush in that area and patch that up as well. So you can see how well these tools work together. This particular tool also works across layers. So in other words, if we wanted to say move this lady to this background and they were in the same, maybe the flower, but no, we'll stick with this lady to that background. I'm just going to use the move tool to drag a copy over here. And I have not actually tried this one, so let's just see how it works on the fly. I'm going to start with just a little lasso tool. Now you can use all the masking techniques back from the week 2 videos to get a perfect selection. I just want to do a quick show. And I will go ahead and grab our content-aware move tool. Set it to move. I think a lower structure in this case. And a way lower color. All right. And we'll try to blend according to what's below it. Look how beautifully it handled this. That error means it probably needs a little bit, and this is the issue I was talking about. And on big calculations, it'll just reverse it instead of recalculating it. And we want a higher structure still. And let's try it with actually maximum color real quick. So herein lies the slight issue. That worked fairly well on the right. You can still see a halo that needed to be patched up, but it worked worse on the left because it was trying to blend her in to make her look authentic in the image. So this is the correct lighting for this as far as it can determine for the blue background, but it's not the correct lighting for her. So in that case, you'd probably want to actually do this move in 2 pieces via the let me reverse this, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, via the new layer. Boom. So that moved it over, but if we weren't happy with the color, just crank the color down, pop her in. Pretty decent attempt. And then we would go and notice, because there was a tree nearby, she took on some tree quality, so you gotta watch out for that. So essentially that's the Content Aware Move tool. There's just one more thing I wanted to try while we're in here. Let's roll back in history to the beginning of this lady. As I was saying, the Content Aware Move tool should be able to do a better job of removing her head. In this case, we would still do a new layer so we don't damage the original. We would send it to extend. And voila, we can start pulling out big chunks of her head immediately. I don't know exactly why you'd want to do this, but you absolutely can. And I would want to subtract some off with the Alt key. And actually the best way to do it would actually be to come in with a different tool, like perhaps the magnetic lasso tool, and then just get kind of a head shape. Thusly, not going to go over the whole thing. And then once you have the head shape, let me subtract that out, the head shape, you can go in with the Content Aware Move tool. Oh, sorry. Take the lasso tool, move it over to an area that you want to do a Content Aware Move. And then you would come in and set it with the Content Aware Move tool. Boop. And look, her head's disappearing already. It's a pretty quick way to get rid of a big swatch of stuff. All right, that's the Content Aware Move tool versus the Patch tool versus the Spot Healing Brush tool versus the Healing Brush tool. I believe I've covered everything. If you want more information on that, go ahead and let me know. I'll be happy to record more videos. But that should get us ready for the next few steps of the assignment. Before we delve into creating patterns, though, I do want to show you how automation works, including contact sheets, because we're going to be using a contact sheet to display all of our patterns once we're done creating them. So we'll take a quick sidestep into that. Then we'll use everything we learned here to create good patterns with a number of techniques. Specifically, we're going to be using the other offset filter in order to do this, and it will be quite amazing. I should mention Red Eye tool is just simply a Red Eye cleanup tool. So if you have an old photo with Red Eye, you just go click, click, and it tries to get rid of it. You can see how it blended it away with some gray. That's essentially it. There aren't any eyes in here, so it doesn't do a particularly good job. Might be a little more interesting on this lady. We go click, click. It tries to remove the red eye. You can see that it's actually dulled her eyes out just a little bit. Oh, well, it actually didn't do anything because there was nothing there. Let me duplicate the layer, sorry. And then with the red eye tool, it attempts to dull it out. Depending on where you click, it can be more or less successful. You also have to have red eye for it to work. Now she's has more of a zombie feel to her, so that may not be the best tool to use in this case. All right, I'll see you next video as we delve into automation.